Hello everyone, welcome to Mr. Noctory, boring ancient history stories for sleep. Tonight, we're meeting a man who is also awake at this hour. Not because of insomnia, not because of a deadline, but because he's about to put on armor, grab a sword, and march into battle. Before he slashes, or gets slashed, he has to eat breakfast. Not pancakes, not soft-boiled eggs, but cold rice, pickled radish, and some tea, also cold. A samurai is eating his last meal, without knowing it's his last. Before we begin, if you genuinely feel like this is a comforting place to take shelter late at night, hit like and subscribe, but only if you really want to. Like the rules in an old tavern, you're only here if you need a quiet corner. And you know what I love the most? Reading the comments, seeing where you're tuning in from, and what time it is. Whether it's New York or Norway, 1 in the morning or 5 in the morning, you're here. And I see you. Now, dim the lights. Turn on a little fan if you have one. Not because it's hot, but for that soft humming sound. What did you think a samurai was? A tall warrior in gleaming armor, riding a white horse through the wind, hair tied like a poet, quoting virtue, slicing flawlessly. No, not you. Not this morning. You're the real kind of samurai, the one who lives on barley, sleeps on a straw mat, and gets paid in a sack of rice if you survive the battle. You're not the horseback archer galloping through snow. You're Gokunin or a Shigeru, the lowest tier in the bloody pyramid of the samurai class. Some days, you practice sword work in the morning, teach school in the afternoon, and grow radishes in the backyard when there's time. Because honor doesn't fill your stomach, and the land still needs plowing, whether you're wearing armor or not. You were taught Bushido, the warrior spirit, loyalty, integrity, courage, and readiness to die for your lord. But when you're hungry and your clothes are torn, you start to realize dying for ideals sounds noble. Until you remember ideals don't cook rice. You believe in honor, but you also know sometimes staying alive is the bravest thing you can do. You have a sword, but it's not sharp. You have a horse, but someone else is borrowing it. And you have armor, but the straps are so worn that one sharp turn might flash your butt. Your armor belonged to someone already dead, maybe killed in battle, maybe from the cold. It doesn't fit. The shoulders off, the hips are dented, and the smell is deeply historical. The leather's rotting, the chest plate has a dent the size of an orange. You don't know if it's from a sword or falling downstairs. The helmet, no chin strap. It tilts like it's greeting someone. You don't look like a warrior. You look like a walking artifact. No one paints portraits of you. No poet praises your aura. In fact, no one remembers your name, except the old neighbor and the guy writing the death roster. You live in the rural north, where snow arrives before the news and battle rumors come after harvest. You don't like fighting, but you're good at staying silent. And in a time of chaos, that's enough to get sent into war. You once hoped to be a scholar, or at least a tofu seller. But no, fate cast you as low-rank warrior, which means you swing a sword, but don't get to ask why. And this morning, you'll go to war for a lord you've never met, and you're not even sure he's still alive. You once fought for the Imagawa clan, then got ordered to fight against them. Sometimes they're your masters, sometimes your enemies. You're not sure anymore. News changes faster than the rainy season. All you know is to carry the sword and follow orders. Who to kill? Why? Doesn't matter. What matters is your name still on the rice list. In short, you're a samurai, but the kind who creaks when he breathes, feels like a relic in armor, and eats cold rice, knowing full well this might be your last meal. You open your eyes, no bells, no alarms, just the sound of mist falling outside the porch, a damp, quiet sound, and the wind slipping through thin wooden walls, whispering something bad is coming. You put on clothes, not for warmth, but to look like someone still alive. The house is silent. You step out of your room, feet hitting cold dirt. Mountain air this early bites so sharp you see your breath. Wind slides through the wall, cracks and slaps your neck like a small knife. You slip on straw sandals. They're damp, cold as stone. A chill shoots up your spine. You're not even sure you can feel your feet, but you walk. Because that's what a samurai does, even when the body disagrees. The kitchen glows with a weak ember. It's an irori hearth, smoky, ashy, a black pot hanging from a wire. The smell, firewood smoke, pickled radish, and a hint of burnt goat hair from yesterday. Smoke clings to the walls, staining memory black. This isn't a place for eating. It's a place for enduring. And your mother, she's there, sitting beside a flat basket of pickled radish. She's not young. Her hands are thin, her back slightly bent, hair dusted white from old funeral seasons. She once flipped radishes for your father, the day he left and never returned. She did it for your brother, now only mentioned on memorial days. And today, it's your turn. She doesn't ask anything, doesn't say anything. She sent off too many. She's learned, whatever might break should be held gently. She flips, one piece at a time. Flip up, air dry, flip down. The same rhythm, slow, steady, meditative. She doesn't speak, doesn't look back, but you know, she's been up longer than you, maybe all night. You sit, no words, no need, because here, love doesn't require language, just a bowl of rice, a slice of radish, and someone still sitting there flipping each piece of salt, as if trying to preserve a little warmth for the one about to leave. She doesn't cry, and neither can you. Warriors don't cry. They just chew, slower than usual. In front of you is a bowl of white rice. No sesame sprinkles, no soft-boiled egg. Nothing to post online. Just cold rice, really cold. Not a dish anyone loves, but one that survives every upheaval. In the Sengoku era, people cooked rice once a day. Firewood was as precious as blood. Cold rice, or reisui, was usually for breakfast, or wrapped to carry into battle. It didn't need to be warm. It just needed to be there. Some days, you eat cold rice 3 times. Some nights, you lay your head on a rice ball wrapped in bamboo leaves, because it's the driest, most huggable, and warmest thing you have on you. Samurai like you don't carry winter coats, but there's always room for cold rice, to eat, to survive. Cooked the night before, left overnight in an earthen pot, now dry at the edges, hard at the bottom. You don't need to ask why it's not reheated. There's a stove, but the firewood's saved for dinner, if there's dinner. You pick up your chopsticks. No one urges you to eat. No one says, eat it while it's hot. Because everyone knows, the warmth left these grains a long time ago. Just like many other things. You chew slowly, not to savor it, but to make it last. Each swallow fills your stomach a little, and empties your heart just a bit more. Cold rice has no flavor. Or rather, its flavor is the absence of flavor. It's like the silence between 2 war horns, noisy with dread, suffocating, but not enough to fall back asleep. How many times have you eaten this dish? You once had hot rice. Age 7, a short New Year's Day. Your mother scooped steaming rice into your bowl, her hands trembling, but her eyes shining. That day, the family laughed. That day, you thought rice would always be warm, and everyone would always be there. But then, war came back. The steam from the rice pot turned into smoke from the burning roof, and the rice turned cold again. Since you were little, since your father was still home, since your brother still came back, since you believed samurai were the strongest people on earth. Now you know, samurai don't need strength, just more endurance than the others. And nothing symbolizes endurance like a bowl of cold rice. No complaints, no melting, no sparkle, just existing, quietly and cold. You finish the bowl. Not a grain left, because you don't know if you'll get to eat again. You pick up a slice of radish, pale yellow, thin, wet. One side still bears your mother's fingerprint from when she flipped it this morning. Pickled radish, Takwon. It's named after Zen monk Takwon Soho, a man who once taught about letting go and death as light as a feather. Just no one said clearly. Letting go here means letting go of smell, flavor, and even hope. This dish is cheap, easy to make, and long-lasting, perfect for war, poverty, and mornings where you don't know if you're coming back. People change, lords change, even land changes. But Takwon stays sour, still salty, still there, like destiny, sliced. The thing that never misses a meal, whether that meal is for living or preparing to die. You take a bite, the crunch snaps, like something just broke inside your mouth. First taste, sour, then salty. Then, a sting behind your nose, not from chili, but because you know, this is the last dish someone else will ever prepare for you. No words needed, just a slice of radish, enough to say, "Come home, okay?" You remember the first time you ate this, also made by your mother. The smell was so strong you scrunched your face, stuck out your tongue, almost cried. You called it disgusting and asked why your family didn't eat what the neighbors did. Your mother laughed, a thin smile, like a radish slice dried through 3 seasons of wind. She said, anything that lasts long was never chosen for being delicious. Now you chew without flinching, because if you accidentally smile, the tears might follow. Pickled radish, honestly, isn't tasty, but it lingers. Even after you leave the kitchen, the house, the world, that taste stays on your tongue. You chew slowly, not for fear of choking, but because you want to hold on to that feeling of someone once cooking for you in a world that's growing quieter. You hold a piece of dried meat. It's stiff, dry, like the pillow you sleep on every night, thin, with no warmth in it. This meat isn't from some free-range pig grazing on open fields, not from a chicken, boiled soft. It's sun-dried meat, thinly sliced, salted, left in the wind for a week. Surely from a beast that fell, not from war, but from waiting too long. At first you didn't like it, tough as sugarcane pulp. Biting it felt like chewing steel. But after a few battles, you started to see the truth of this food. Dried meat doesn't ask you to chew much. It gives no flavor. It just stays in your mouth, stubborn, like words left unsaid. One piece, in a place with nothing but the battlefield's cold, is enough to survive another day. You don't smile. There's no need to smile during war. Your mouth needs to be tough, like this meat. You remember when your mother made it, before your father left for battle. She dried the meat, sliced it, and said, "Dried meat isn't for rainy days. It's for sun, for the road. And if you return alive, at least it's an easy meal to find." Because beyond cold rice, beyond radish, beyond the things too familiar, this dried meat is the only true companion of a samurai. Not soft, not warm, not sweet, but never empty. You hold the porcelain bowl. The tea isn't strong, isn't fragrant. It's just cold leaf water, pale green, like your own mood. Your mother brewed the tea in the morning, left it overnight so you could drink it this morning. No one woke you to drink. No one reminded you to have it while it's hot, because you know, heat never stays long. This tea isn't for enjoyment. It isn't meant to make you happy. It's meant to buy you a bit more time before you step outside and maybe never return. This cup of cold tea doesn't wake you up, but it helps you forget the fear. It's something you do just to pass time, to push away the feeling of living in a world slowly dying. You sit down, hold the bowl, say nothing. No one is beside you, just the sound of fire burning, wind blowing outside, and your own sipping of cold tea, like you're swallowing time itself. The scent is familiar, but the smell is just the smell of impermanence. It feels like a soft reminder, not spoken out loud. Don't be afraid, just drink. After all, death isn't here yet. It's a strange feeling. The tea is cold, but it calms you a bit. It changes nothing, doesn't erase the fear, doesn't slow your heart, but at least it helps you forget part of it. And so you drink, sip after sip, just the tea and the silence. You're not the only one who woke up this morning, not the only one ready to walk into battle, but you're the only one who had to cook your own breakfast. Not because there's no one else, but because the one in the kitchen is used to the silence of fire and the shadow of war. Your mother, or maybe your wife, is the one always there, saying nothing, just quietly laying out the meal, stirring the pot, arranging each piece of rice, radish, and dried meat for you. When she doesn't look at you, she doesn't speak, but she knows you're leaving and you might not return. Have you ever asked her about the meal? No, because you already know. She taught you long ago. Meals aren't for enjoying. They're for staying alive. Cold rice, pickled radish, dried meat. They have one task: to help you survive one more day, one more hour, one more minute. But there's something you never say out loud. She doesn't just cook breakfast for you. She's been preparing for your departure since you were a child. Not just meals, but the emotional readiness for the day you might not come back. When you eat, she doesn't look at you. She looks into the fire. And in the tears she holds back, she already knows. Death is never far, but today won't be your day. For a samurai, eating less isn't a choice. It's a strategy. The truth is, you don't have time to eat well. You only have time to eat just enough, or not enough, to survive the day. In the middle of endless battles, you eat less. Because the more you eat, the slower you move. And you definitely don't want to be the first one to fall just because you were too full, right? A samurai never eats until they're stuffed. Fullness is the enemy of agility. A samurai doesn't need to be full, just enough to stay sharp and not collapse in the middle of battle. Your meal is a strategy. Cold rice? No need to reheat. Pickled radish? The longer you chew, the better it feels. If you ignore the sensation of swallowing your own hardened life. Samurai eat like this, but they never show it. Because who talks about meals in wartime? They fight to live, but living isn't the goal. The goal is to die beautifully. Breakfast isn't a time for enjoyment. It's a time to endure. And sometimes you just chew to keep fighting. Even though you know, when the battle ends, there won't be any chance to enjoy anything else, except death. It's a morning like any other. You sit down, and in front of you is a small bowl of rice. Plain white rice, served with a light soup and a few slices of pickled radish. Not a feast, not a warm breakfast after a long night. This is the meal before you cut open your own stomach. Seppuku. A sacred ritual to protect your honor, to hold on to a piece of your ideals while the world seems to have trampled you. The teacup, cold. The rice, not warm. Your mother, or the woman who has cared for you, doesn't look at you, doesn't speak. She's used to endings like this. She once prepared this for your father, then your brother, and now for you. A man with nothing left to protect except his honor. You eat slowly, not because you're hungry, but because this is your last meal. There's no need to rush. Each grain of rice, each sip of tea, feels more intense than ever, as if everything is slowing down so you can take one last look at your life, like a warrior with no weapon left, but the blade meant for himself. No one tells you to eat much, eat little, to die with grace. This is what you've been taught. Don't let death make you weak. The meal is not for pleasure. It's a farewell. It's for you to leave in silence. She doesn't cry. No one cries. Because those familiar with war, with death, with the loneliness of being a samurai, don't cry, even when all that remains is one final meal. You wake up, not because of an alarm, not because of the smell of food, not because of the morning light. You wake because your body can't sleep anymore. It knows that survival is a continuous process. This morning's meal, like every morning, isn't for pleasure. It's the only thing you can eat to keep living. In front of you is a bowl of cold rice, dry, hard, with no seasoning at all. No soup, no vegetables, no meat. Just cold rice, bland, not enough to ease your hunger, but enough to keep your body going for one more day. You don't even know why you're eating. Certainly not because it's delicious. Not because you're so hungry you can't think. You eat to have just enough strength to go into battle. Or maybe just to keep walking in this cruel world. Each bite of rice is a sacrifice of weary days. Not for health, but for one single goal. To live one more day. Honestly, if someone asked you, "What did you eat today?" you'd answer, "Anything, as long as it doesn't kill me right away." Breakfast isn't a choice. It's a survival equation. This meal might not be good, but at least it keeps you from starving. Today, when we sit down to eat, the first thing we think about isn't survival. We think about taste. We think about how good the food looks. And sometimes, we even think about portions full of butter, cheese, and spices. Nowadays, we eat for flavor, for the happiness found in a grilled piece of meat, in a hot bowl of soup, in a fresh slice of cake straight from the oven. But for them, those warriors of the past, eating wasn't a joy. They didn't eat because they wanted to live. They ate because they had to. Every meal wasn't a time to relax, not a moment to enjoy. It was a way to keep surviving. Cold rice, pickled radish, dried meat, not delicious dishes. They were survival after every battle, every day spent under the brutality of war. They ate not to satisfy a craving, but simply to exist. Today, when you eat a full breakfast, you may never think of a warrior's food. Meals that brought no satisfaction, yet had the power to save someone in the middle of a war. Your breakfast today might be a sunny side-up egg, a hot cup of coffee, a slice of buttered toast. But their breakfast, a samurai's, was a bowl of cold rice, a piece of dried meat, and a bit of pickled radish. Because they didn't eat to live beautifully. They ate to survive. all the deaths of the Roman emperors. In every great dynasty, power has always been a precious commodity, protected at all costs, and sometimes paid for with the very lives of those who held it. The Roman Empire, one of the most powerful empires in human history, witnessed brutal battles not only on the battlefield, but also within the imperial palace. The deaths of Roman emperors, whether brutal, mysterious, or tragic, reflected the fragility of power and the boundless human desire to seize the throne. But power is never forever. It is a game of risk, where those who hold it must face an enemy that never sleeps: betrayal. Roman emperors with absolute power in their hands often paid a steep price for their ambition. Sometimes it was death at the hands of external enemies, but more often it came from those closest to them, the very people they once trusted. And it was their deaths, rulers of a vast empire wielding absolute power, that became shocking endpoints, unpredictable conclusions to those deemed the greatest. From bloody executions to poisonings, from betrayal by companions to bloody court uprisings, it all paints a portrait of power that is fragile, easily shaken, and ultimately easy to steal. From the earliest days of the Roman Empire, power was understood as an endless struggle. Augustus, the first Roman emperor, founded a grand dynasty, but his death marked the beginning of a series of events in which power holders would face betrayal, conspiracy, and ultimately death. His successors, whether talented or not, all fell into the vicious cycle of fierce competition and absolute power. So why couldn't such great leaders protect themselves from tragic ends? How could these powerful emperors lose everything in a single moment, when just one wrong step in the game of power could cost them their lives? The answer lies in the nature of Roman power. It was never secure, always shaken by dark schemes behind palace doors. These deaths were not just the end of emperors' lives, but symbols of the collapse of dynasties, of power systems built over centuries. Power, even the greatest, cannot shield its bearer from betrayal, death, and eventual oblivion. The death of a Roman emperor was not merely the end of a reign, but a warning to anyone daring to climb the throne. Augustus, born Gaius Octavius, was not only the founder of the Roman Empire, but also a symbol of absolute power in a world of constant turmoil. After winning civil wars and defeating his final rival, Mark Antony, Augustus became the first emperor of Rome, laying the foundation for a mighty dynasty that would last for centuries. However, despite being revered and admired as a living god, his death remains mysterious, and to this day, many questions remain unanswered. Augustus's political strategy. One reason Augustus was able to maintain firm power for 45 years was his skillful political strategy. From the beginning, Augustus crafted a new political model that preserved the appearance of the Republic, even though his power was absolute. He did not call himself king or emperor, but chose the title princeps, meaning first citizen of the Senate, thereby cleverly maintaining the old republic structure. Although he held judicial, military, and religious authority, he retained titles like consul, senator, and pontifex maximus to give his power a sense of legality. This hybrid of republic and monarchy allowed Augustus to consolidate power without making citizens feel oppressed under an obvious monarchy. Another key strategy was building a military loyal to himself, rather than relying on local forces or freelance armies. He established a standing army, regularly maintained military strength, and ensured the army would follow the emperor's command. This military support allowed him to quell uprisings and maintain firm control over the empire. Augustus's economic and military reforms. In addition to political strategy, Augustus implemented important reforms in economics and the military to stabilize and grow the Roman Empire. Economically, he introduced tax reforms and better financial management. He created a new taxation system to replace outdated republican rules and formed a team of financial officials to oversee revenues and expenses. This not only kept imperial finances strong, but also created a stable foundation for long-term economic development. One of Augustus's most critical reforms was reorganizing the army. He built a professional force with trained soldiers on official salaries, increasing their loyalty to him. He also created a pension system for veterans, helping them settle after service. These reforms built a powerful army that remained loyal to Augustus instead of being divided as in previous regimes. Additionally, Augustus focused on grand infrastructure projects, roads, bridges, and ports that boosted trade and communication throughout the empire. These improvements strengthened economic connections and supported urban and commercial growth. Livia and her crucial role in Roman politics. During Augustus's reign, the role of his wife Livia cannot be overlooked. Livia was not just a loyal spouse, but a significant political partner, deeply influencing many of the emperor's major decisions. She stood behind many key policies, helping shape Augustus's image as a national leader and participating in decisions related to military and domestic affairs. Livia constantly built political power and can be seen as the second most powerful figure in the empire. Not just an empress, but a shrewd strategist. Livia's involvement in politics is a major reason why Augustus's death remains suspicious. While no solid evidence exists, rumors persist that Livia may have poisoned her husband to place her son, Tiberius, on the throne. Augustus's cautious and informal approach to succession left a power vacuum, plunging the Roman court into chaos after his death. The death of Augustus wasn't just the loss of a great leader. It marked the start of succession conflicts within the Roman Empire. Though Augustus named Tiberius his heir, no one could predict the consequences of this decision. Tiberius, though carefully chosen, would become Rome's second emperor without earning the same admiration and respect Augustus had. And so, the story of power, ambition, and death would continue in Roman history, opening a new, turbulent chapter for the emperors who followed. Tiberius, the successor of Augustus, was one of the most conflicted emperors in Roman history. Although he was well educated and thoroughly prepared to inherit power, Tiberius never earned the admiration and love of the people like his predecessor. His career was a string of military victories, political reforms, and loneliness. Born into a noble family, Tiberius was the son of Tiberius Claudius Nero and Livia Drusilla, the second wife of Augustus. Still, the death of his father and his close association with Augustus secured his position as heir. Tiberius was not just the inheritor of power, but also the preserver of Augustus's values within the Roman Empire. However, his differences in personality and ruling style made him a target of criticism and frequent opposition. The journey to the throne. Tiberius began his career under the shadow of Augustus. However, with his stern policies and lack of charisma, he failed to win the people's favor. Roman politics during his reign were anything but easy. Rebellions and dissatisfaction among the aristocracy grew steadily, especially after Augustus's death in 14 CE, when Tiberius officially became emperor. Many in the court were displeased with his succession and sought to challenge Tiberius's authority. This led to bloody purges, with close allies being exiled or executed. Nevertheless, Tiberius maintained control during his early years on the throne, largely thanks to military support and a tightly controlled political surveillance system. But his personal life was full of tragedy. A deep sense of isolation and mistrust turned him increasingly stern, violent, and indifferent. These actions caused both the nobility and the military to doubt and distance themselves from him throughout the rest of his life. Tiberius's foreign policy. Alongside domestic challenges, Tiberius faced external threats. His foreign policy was not as bold as Augustus's, but it showed caution and, at times, hesitation in territorial expansion. Tiberius mainly focused on maintaining stability within the Roman Empire, avoiding costly and unnecessary wars. One notable military campaign was his management of frontier regions, particularly battles against Germanic tribes. Tiberius confronted uprisings from northern tribes, and though he didn't achieve many major victories, the borders remained secure, a success that protected the empire from outside invasions. This policy reflected a pragmatic leadership style, prioritizing defense and consolidation over conquest. However, during Tiberius's reign, Rome also faced threats from the east. He maintained close relations with kingdoms like Parthia and Armenia, and when necessary, he did not hesitate to use military force to protect Roman interests in the region. Although he didn't win legendary victories like later emperors, Tiberius's strategy of preserving stability and avoiding war helped the empire steer clear of bloody, expensive conflicts. His foreign policy may be viewed as conservative, focused on defending the frontiers and maintaining peace rather than expanding or engaging in new wars. While his lack of decisiveness was criticized, it's undeniable that he spared the Roman Empire from numerous costly conflicts and preserved its stability during a turbulent era. The strange death of Tiberius. When Tiberius died in the year 37, no one expected his passing to be so uneventful. The ambiguity surrounding his death raised the question: did he really die of illness, as historians recorded, or was there something more sinister behind it? Some accounts say Tiberius died alone and sick at the age of 77, in his villa in Capri, the retreat he chose to live out his final years. But another compelling theory suggests that Tiberius was murdered. For a long time, rumors circulated that his death might have resulted from a conspiracy by those closest to him. Some believe the emperor was forced to die by his guard prefect Macron, who had close ties to the emperor and held significant power at court. Macron, having carried out many critical assignments, was trusted by Tiberius. These clues led many to suspect that Macron may have orchestrated Tiberius's death to seize control of the empire. The mystery surrounding Tiberius's death has fueled debate among historians for centuries. Whether due to illness or conspiracy, his death not only marked the end of a reign, but also remains one of Roman history's most enigmatic stories. Historians' inability to verify the cause of his death opened a new, tense, and unpredictable chapter for the Roman Empire. The legacy of Tiberius. Though Tiberius is not remembered as a great emperor in Roman history, his legacy cannot be ignored. His political and military reforms strengthened the Roman Empire throughout his reign. Tiberius's government continued what Augustus had built, from a strong military system to maintaining internal stability. However, his lack of charm and harsh nature made him unpopular, and his name became associated with tyranny and fear within the imperial court. the mysterious death of Tiberius ushered in a new, challenging era for Rome. After his passing, his son Caligula ascended to the throne and quickly proved himself a brutal emperor, undoing much of what Tiberius had established. Tiberius's death, like his life, was strange and mysterious. One could say that his departure not only ended a historical phase, but also triggered a turning point in the Roman Empire, one that brought forth chaotic and bloody power struggles in the years to come. His death reflects the fragility of Roman power and shows that even the mightiest emperors could not escape the conspiracies and forces circling the throne. Throughout Roman history, Caligula is one of the emperors least remembered for good reasons. From the moment he ascended the throne, he quickly became a symbol of brutality and madness. As the heir of Tiberius, Caligula succeeded to the imperial throne in the year 37, after the mysterious death of his adoptive father. However, completely different from his predecessor, Caligula failed to maintain the loyalty of the army and the people. Instead, he became infamous for his erratic and violent actions, which ultimately led to his own tragic death. Ascension and Caligula's early reign Caligula, whose real name was Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, was raised from a young age in the royal family. At first, he was expected to be a talented emperor, inheriting the values that Augustus and Tiberius had established. When Tiberius died, Caligula was appointed as his successor and immediately assumed power with the cheers of many sectors of society, especially the military. In the beginning, Caligula was beloved by the people for his gentle demeanor and promises of reform. However, just a few months into his reign, a major shift occurred. Caligula began to display abnormal behavior in both conduct and politics. He became brutal, contradictory, and started taking actions that left the court and military bewildered. His decisions no longer seemed to be based on reason, but rather on the satisfaction of desires and a thirst for absolute power. Madness and bizarre behavior. One of Caligula's first acts as emperor was to overturn the policies of his predecessor, particularly by annulling the purges initiated by Tiberius and removing suspicion from his inner circle. However, his actions quickly turned extreme and filled with cruelty. One of Caligula's most notorious decisions was declaring himself a god. He ordered the construction of a temple dedicated to himself and required everyone to worship him as a deity. This not only went against the values of the Roman Empire, but also caused him to lose the respect of the aristocracy and sparked public outrage. Caligula was also infamous for extreme behavior in his personal life. He demanded to be called Jove, the supreme god in Roman mythology, and dressed like the gods. He even claimed to be the son of Jupiter, which caused social unrest and was a clear manifestation of delusions of grandeur. Additionally, Caligula carried out acts of violence that were beyond imagination. He ordered gladiators to fight for his amusement, allowed torture and murder to happen within the palace, and even forced his inner circle to participate in these brutal entertainments. Betrayal and confronting enemies. Although early in his reign, Caligula won the favor of the military and aristocracy, over time his cruelty and erratic actions led to growing discontent among the court and the army. Officials began to rebel, the military grew disloyal, and even members of the royal family became concerned about the empire's stability under Caligula's rule. With his despotic and violent nature, Caligula did not hesitate to deal harshly with enemies in the court. He continued to purge, imprison, and execute those suspected of being threats to his power. These actions only fueled more resentment and opposition. Eventually, the anger of the military and court officials reached a peak. A conspiracy was devised to assassinate Caligula, aiming to end his brutal rule. The horrifying death of Caligula. On January 24th, in the year 41, Caligula was assassinated by a group of officers in the Praetorian Guard. The assassination was carried out with the involvement of even Caligula's closest associates, including senior officials in the court. Historians recount that he was surrounded in a palace corridor, attacked with knives, and killed on the spot. Caligula's death not only marked the end of a brutal reign, but also symbolized the fragility of absolute power. Even as the most powerful emperor of the Roman Empire at the time, Caligula could not escape betrayal from those closest to him. His death ushered in a new era of instability for the Roman Empire. The legacy of Caligula. Though Caligula reigned for only 4 years, his legacy remains a powerful mark in Roman history. His madness and brutality became a cautionary tale about the power and dangers of unchecked authority. Caligula's name is never forgotten, and his death became a symbol of the downfall of emperors who failed to control their ambition and character. Under the reign of his successor, Emperor Claudius, the Roman Empire entered a more stable phase. But Caligula's image lives on, as a symbol of madness and the cruelty of power. In the history of the Roman Empire, Claudius was one of the less prominent emperors, but played an important role in maintaining stability and expanding the empire. He was not someone expected to become emperor, but it was his intelligence and leadership ability that helped Claudius build a solid reign. However, his career and life ended tragically and suspiciously, as he died under mysterious circumstances, believed to have been poisoned by those closest to him. From outsider to Emperor Claudius was born into the royal family, but was not expected to become emperor. He was the son of Drusus, the brother of Tiberius, but unlike other family members, Claudius had several physical disabilities and was considered weak and unfit to rule. Historians note that Claudius suffered from tremors, limped, and stammered, which made him the subject of ridicule within the royal family. As a result, Claudius was often overlooked and excluded from major political affairs. However, these very shortcomings may have helped Claudius survive in an environment full of conspiracy and betrayal. When Tiberius died and Caligula rose to power, Claudius remained a minor figure in the eyes of the court. But in the year 41, when Caligula was assassinated, Claudius was unexpectedly declared the new emperor of Rome by the Praetorian Guard. Although no one thought he would be a strong ruler, Claudius proved to be entirely different from his predecessors, the intelligent emperor and major reforms. Though not highly regarded early in life, Claudius was a knowledgeable scholar with a unique vision. He was well versed in languages and history, giving him deep insights into managing the empire. Upon taking the throne, Claudius initiated numerous important reforms, particularly in administration and law. He reformed the tax system, reorganized the army, and especially expanded the Roman Empire by conquering new territories. One of Claudius's most significant military achievements was the conquest of Britain, Britannia, in the year 43. This invasion not only expanded Roman territory, but also affirmed the empire's power. These military victories bolstered Claudius's reputation and earned him the trust of the army and the people. Claudius also excelled in managing the empire effectively. He introduced reforms to improve administrative efficiency, appointed competent officials, resolved lawsuits, and constructed major public works like roads, ports, and water systems. These reforms brought prosperity and development to the Roman Empire. The mysterious death and suspicions. Despite being a wise and talented emperor, Claudius's death marked a tragic and suspicious end to his reign. He died in the year 54, and his passing ushered in a turbulent period for the Roman Empire as his son Nero ascended the throne. Claudius's death was recorded as due to severe stomach pain, but many historians believe he was poisoned. Several theories surround his death, with the most prominent suggesting that his wife, Agrippina the Younger, actively poisoned him to secure the throne for her son, Nero. Ancient historians like Suetonius and Tacitus noted many suspicious aspects of Claudius's death, especially since Nero was swiftly declared emperor without significant opposition from the army or senate. Some believe Agrippina poisoned Claudius with a mushroom dish, one of his favorite foods. Many scholars believe she carefully planned to eliminate Claudius because she knew that only with Nero on the throne could she effectively control the empire through her son. However, the truth behind Claudius's death remains a question with no definitive answer. Legacy and impact. After death. Although Claudius's death was shrouded in suspicion and caused turmoil in the court, his legacy remains highly regarded in Roman history. His reforms left a lasting impact on the empire's political and military structure. His territorial expansion and public work strengthened Rome's position in the ancient world. However, the succession of Nero brought significant upheaval to the empire. Nero, though Claudius's son, was a brutal and ambitious emperor. His reign quickly led to the collapse of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, and Claudius's death is seen as one of the starting points of the Roman Empire's power crises. Nero, the fifth emperor of the Roman Empire, is not only known for his brutality, but also for the political and social crises he left behind. As the son of Claudius and Agrippina, Nero inherited power from a turbulent dynasty. However, his reign quickly turned into a nightmare, not only for the Roman people, but also for those closest to him. Nero's death, although by his own choice, closed a bloody chapter in Roman history. The beginning of Nero's reign, from hope to hell. When Claudius died in the year 54, Nero, then only 16 years old, ascended the throne. With the support of his mother Agrippina, Nero was expected to become a brilliant emperor, inheriting Claudius's legacy and continuing the reforms his adoptive father had implemented. At first, Nero appeared to be a gentle and humble emperor. His mother, Agrippina, played an important role in the court, managing many political affairs and maintaining strong influence in policymaking. However, the early peaceful years of Nero's reign didn't last long. After he seized full control, his rule quickly descended into political and social chaos. The relationship between Nero and Agrippina became increasingly strained. Agrippina, who had helped Nero gain power, soon became a threat to her son's authority. Following a series of power struggles in the palace, Nero decided to brutally eliminate his mother in the year 59. Agrippina was killed in a sophisticated plot and was later claimed to have died in an assassination, further destabilizing Roman politics. A life of brutality and inhumane acts. After his mother's death, Nero increasingly revealed his cruel and tyrannical nature. He not only carried out bloody purges, but also engaged in violent acts that terrified both the court and the people. One of the most infamous events during Nero's reign was the Great Fire of Rome in the year 64. 1/3 of the city burned down, leaving thousands homeless and destitute. While most of the people suffered from the disaster, Nero was accused of being indifferent. Some historians even claimed that Nero sang and played music as he watched the flames consume the city, further fueling public hatred toward him. Following the fire, Nero expanded his construction projects, including the extravagant and costly golden house, the Domus Aurea. Meanwhile, to fund these projects, Nero constantly raised taxes and imposed exploitative policies that drove more people into poverty throughout the empire. However, Nero's brutality didn't stop there. He ordered the deaths of many family members, including his wife Octavia and his former lover Britannicus, Claudius's son. Nero also didn't hesitate to kill officials and close friends to secure his power. These ongoing purges caused large parts of the Roman court to live in fear and isolation. Political decline and the uprisings. Nero's reign became increasingly chaotic. Although he once had strong military support over time, uprisings and dissatisfaction among the nobility grew. His corruption and irresponsible behavior drove the empire into deeper turmoil. In the year 68, 3 major revolts broke out, including those in Gaul, modern-day France, and Hispania, modern-day Spain, directly threatening Nero's rule. Nero tried to suppress the rebellions with harsh measures, but ultimately, the loss of trust from the army and aristocracy made it impossible for him to maintain power. By late 68, the Roman army and Senate declared Nero a public enemy, a decision no emperor had ever faced before. Under pressure from the military and growing opposition, Nero had no other choice but to commit suicide. Nero's bloody death. In a state of despair, Nero fled the palace and attempted to escape Rome. Eventually, he was pursued by guards and ended his own life on June 9th in the year 68. His death was not a simple one. He stabbed himself with the help of a servant. Before dying, Nero allegedly said, "Help me, I am an artist," as an expression of regret for what he had failed to achieve, but also reflecting the nature of a brutal, self-indulgent emperor who ultimately could not save himself from collapse. Nero's legacy and impact. Nero's death marked the end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, which had lasted for over a century. While Nero left a strong mark on Roman history, his legacy is tied to cruelty and purges. His death ushered in a time of great upheaval for the Roman Empire, as power transitioned without stability, leading to a succession crisis in the year of the 4 emperors. Nero became a symbol of greed, violence, and the failure of absolute power. Though he was emperor of Rome, to many, he was a man deserving of scorn. Nero's bloody death was not just the end of a dynasty. It was a sign of the failure to maintain long-term power in the Roman Empire. The year of the 4 emperors. The year 69, known as the Year of the 4 Emperors, was one of the most chaotic and bloody periods in Roman imperial history. After the death of Nero, the last emperor of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, the Roman Empire plunged into a succession crisis. This instability led to a power struggle among generals, armies, and political factions, triggering a sequence of violent, treacherous events and constant changes in leadership. This year not only marked the end of a dynasty, but also the beginning of major shifts in Roman politics. Nero's death and the beginning of chaos. At the end of 68, Nero's suicide ended the Julio-Claudian dynasty. His death was not only the end of a brutal emperor, but also the signal of a collapsing imperial lineage. Nero's passing opened a difficult chapter for Rome, with no clear successor and an extremely fragile power structure. Immediately after Nero's death, Galba, the governor of Hispania, modern-day Spain, was declared emperor by his troops. However, Galba's rise was not widely accepted across other sectors of society, especially among the military. Armies in other provinces were dissatisfied with Galba's ascension and began to rebel. Though Galba tried to hold on to power, he failed to address the dissatisfaction of the legions. Eventually, his own soldiers betrayed and overthrew him just months after his rule began. Otho, emperor for a single night right after Galba's assassination, the military proclaimed Otho, a former official and general, as the new emperor of Rome. Otho was highly ambitious and vowed to restore stability to the empire. However, he ruled for only 3 months. His brief reign was marked by instability and a major escalation in the power struggle. Otho soon faced a significant challenge. Vitellius, another general, was backed by northern legions and declared himself emperor. Otho could not tolerate the threat, and a major battle broke out between Otho's and Vitellius's forces. Ultimately, Otho was defeated and chose to commit suicide to avoid further bloodshed. His death, only 3 months into his reign, made Rome's political structure more fragile than ever. Vitellius, the overthrown emperor. After Otho's death, Vitellius ascended the throne, becoming the 3rd emperor in the year 69. However, like his predecessors, Vitellius failed to maintain control. Although he had military support, other parts of the empire did not recognize him. At this point, Vespasian, a seasoned general with strong military backing, entered the fray. Vespasian was waging war in Judea during the Jewish revolt and quickly won the support of the army. His forces marched toward Rome, forcing Vitellius to face them in a decisive battle. With little military support, Vitellius was easily defeated. He was captured and executed, ending his short-lived reign. Vitellius's death marked the end of a brutal series of events that plagued the empire throughout 69. Vespasian, the new emperor and restoration of the empire. After defeating Vitellius, Vespasian was declared emperor, becoming the 4th and final ruler of the year 69, and the only one who managed to maintain power and restore stability to the empire. Vespasian not only solved the succession crisis, but also implemented vital reforms to strengthen Roman governance. He consolidated the army and administration and continued military campaigns, notably the conquest of Britain and the construction of the Colosseum. Vespasian is remembered for bringing peace and stability to the Roman Empire after a time of turmoil. His reign marked the beginning of the Flavian dynasty, continuing with his son Titus. His reforms and policies helped restore order and solidified the emperor's authority in Rome. The Year of the 4 Emperors, legacy and meaning. Although the year 69 lasted only 12 months, the events within it became one of the most significant moments in Roman history. It reflected the instability of imperial succession and highlighted the challenges emperors faced in the absence of a clear heir. The power struggles, bloody purges, and rapid shifts in leadership plunged the empire into chaos. However, Vespasian's rise to power and his success in stabilizing the empire demonstrated the influence of the military and the importance of building alliances with powerful social factions. Despite being a year of great tragedy, 69 laid the foundation for a period of recovery and growth under the Flavian dynasty, leaving a lasting mark on Roman history. Vespasian, the 9th emperor of the Roman Empire, was one of the most unique figures in Roman history. He was not an emperor celebrated for great military victories or legendary conquests, but for his ability to restore and stabilize the empire during a time of great upheaval. Rather than imperial ambition, Vespasian is remembered for the reforms and stability he brought to an empire on the brink of collapse. His death, although neither tragic nor surprising, held special meaning, reflecting the dignity and calm of a true leader. The path to the throne. Vespasian was not the first person thought of when it came to succession. Before his ascension, the Roman Empire was undergoing a chaotic phase, following Nero's death in the year 68, which led to the power crisis, known as the Year of the Four Emperors. This was a time when the power of the Roman Empire changed hands rapidly, with new emperors vying for control, including Galba, Otho, and Vitellius. Vespasian, at the time a military commander tasked with quelling the Jewish revolt during the Jewish War, seized the opportunity to rise. After Galba and Otho were successively killed, Vespasian was declared the new emperor of Rome by the army. He quickly defeated Vitellius in a decisive battle, secured power, and established the Flavian dynasty. What made Vespasian stand out was that he was not of royal blood, but a commoner with a military background. Thanks to his military talent and leadership decisiveness, he created a stable and sustainable new dynasty, bringing peace to the Roman Empire after a long period of civil war. Reforms and contributions to the empire Vespasian ascended the throne when the Roman Empire was on the verge of collapse. One of his most important tasks was rebuilding the empire's finances. After years of war and waste during previous reigns, Vespasian faced a serious national budget deficit. He implemented financial recovery measures, including taxing citizens and property, and promoted public construction projects to stimulate the economy. One of Vespasian's notable projects was initiating the construction of the Colosseum, one of the greatest architectural feats of the Roman Empire, symbolizing its strength and glory. Although he did not live to see its completion, launching the Colosseum project helped stabilize the economy, created jobs for thousands, and bolstered his image among the people. Vespasian also focused on strengthening imperial authority while maintaining good relations with the army. He built a loyal and efficient army, implemented military reforms, and ensured that the Roman Empire maintained its power and strength at the borders. This military policy ensured that the empire faced no major external threats during his reign. The quiet death and the image of a kind Emperor Vespasian died in the year 79, after a long reign during which he built a strong empire. His death was neither tragic nor conspiratorial, but occurred in a rather peaceful setting, reflecting his leadership style throughout his life. Vespasian died of illness, and as the Romans believed, he passed away in serenity, not due to plots or betrayal. According to the historian Suetonius, before dying, Vespasian famously said, "An emperor's death is ordinary, but an emperor who dies peacefully and willingly is rare." This statement reflected not only Vespasian's calm acceptance of death, but also his view on the impermanence of power. For him, power was not something to be clung to forever, but a responsibility and part of the natural cycle of life. Vespasian passed away, leaving behind a strong and stable Roman Empire. His death marked the end of a challenging yet successful dynasty in terms of stabilizing the empire. After his death, his son Titus ascended the throne and continued his father's policies, ushering in a prosperous era for Rome. Legacy and influence Vespasian may not be remembered for glorious military triumphs or cultural revolutions, but he was a man who saved the Roman Empire in a time of chaos. His economic and military reforms helped the empire overcome financial crises and defended its borders from threats. Vespasian's death, though quiet and unremarkable, was a fitting end for an emperor who fulfilled his duties, stabilized, and developed the Roman Empire. Vespasian left behind a solid legacy, not through flashy achievements, but through stability and intelligence in managing the empire. The Flavian dynasty he founded continued to flourish under the leadership of Titus and Domitian, and the structures Vespasian initiated, like the Colosseum, still stand today as monuments to his talent and greatness in building and sustaining the Roman Empire. Titus, son of Emperor Vespasian, was one of the most beloved emperors in Roman history. Although he reigned for a short time, Titus left a lasting impression on the hearts of the Roman people, due to his military victories, political fairness, and compassion. However, his sudden death ended a dynasty that was on the rise, creating sorrow and unanswered questions. The path to becoming Emperor Titus was born into the royal family in the year 39, the son of Vespasian and brother of Domitian. Though expected by his father to inherit power, Titus had a promising military career before becoming emperor. He participated in several major campaigns, most notably the Jewish War from 66 to 73, where he commanded Roman forces in the siege and destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem in the year 70. Victory in this war greatly boosted Titus's prestige and made him a hero in the eyes of the Roman people. He also oversaw the completion of the iconic Colosseum, initiated by his father Vespasian. The Colosseum symbolized the Roman Empire's strength and stood as evidence of Titus's efforts to develop and elevate the empire's stature. When Vespasian died in the year 79, Titus became emperor with the support of the army and the people. Despite ruling for only a short time, Titus was praised for his just policies and tolerance toward political rivals. His reign, though brief, is recorded as a period of stability and prosperity for the Roman Empire. Achievements and policies. During his reign, upon his ascension, Titus faced an empire needing recovery after prolonged wars and natural disasters. One of the biggest challenges he faced was the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in the year 79, which destroyed the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum, killing thousands and displacing many. Titus implemented effective relief measures, helping those affected and rebuilding devastated cities. These actions earned him the respect and gratitude of the Roman people, portraying him as a kind and caring emperor. In addition to responding to natural disasters, Titus focused on maintaining peace and stability in the empire. He continued reforms in administration, military policy, and public infrastructure. While his governance aimed at fairness and order, it's worth noting that he also carried out purges to eliminate potential rivals, though these were far less brutal than those under previous regimes. The sudden death and speculations. Titus died on the 13th of September in the year 81, after ruling for only 2 years. His death came suddenly and unexpectedly, shocking the entire Roman Empire. Initially recorded as illness, possibly fever or health issues due to stress and overwork, rumors soon spread, and many began to suspect foul play. Some ancient historians, like Suetonius, noted that Titus died from an unclear illness. But there were also theories that he may have been poisoned by his own brother, Domitian. Domitian, who later became emperor, was believed to have had ambitions for power and may have acted to seize the throne. Although no definitive proof exists, these theories persisted for centuries and cast doubt over Titus's death. Titus's death left a major void in the empire, as he had yet to fulfill many of his grand plans. His legacy, though brief, was one of justice and concern for the Roman people. Legacy and influence. After death, Titus was not only a prominent emperor with military achievements, but also someone who maintained peace in the empire. His loss left a gap hard to fill, and succession within the royal family once again became a major issue. Vespasian's son, Domitian, ascended the throne after him, but ruled very differently from his brother, with authoritarianism and brutality, quickly eroding the prosperity Titus had brought. However, Titus's legacy lies not just in his constructions or military victories, but in the respect and admiration he earned from the Roman people. His sudden death marked the end of a strong dynasty and ushered in a new, more challenging era under Domitian's rule. Domitian, the third emperor of the Flavian dynasty, is one of the most controversial figures in Roman history. As the son of Vespasian and the younger brother of Titus, Domitian inherited the throne after the sudden death of his brother Titus. Although he did not possess the military or political talents of his father and brother, Domitian became an ambitious and authoritarian emperor, which led to his tragic end. Domitian's death, assassinated by those closest to him in the palace, is a testament to the fragility of absolute power and the consequences of brutality in leadership. From promising successor to hated emperor, Domitian ascended the throne in the year 81, when Titus died suddenly after only 2 years of rule. With a strong family background and support from the military, Domitian was expected to continue the legacy built by his father, Vespasian. However, from the beginning of his reign, Domitian demonstrated a very different ruling style from his father and brother. While Vespasian and Titus were known for their cautious and benevolent policies, Domitian began to focus on consolidating his own power to an extreme degree. He continuously sought to purge those who might threaten his rule, especially members of the court and the military. Any act of disobedience was met with bloody retaliation, and Domitian did not hesitate to carry out extremely brutal purges. One of Domitian's most notable decisions was to refer to himself as Dominus et Deus, Lord and God, a title that clearly reflected his desire for absolute power. This made Domitian the first emperor in Roman history to declare himself divine, further increasing the hatred from both the aristocracy and the populace. Betrayal and hatred within the court. Although Domitian was skilled at maintaining his grip on power through purges and fear, his leadership did not garner much respect. The court was rife with purges, with many officials and even family members assassinated. Domitian harbored deep suspicion and distrust of those around him, creating an atmosphere of hostility within the palace. He was considered a brutal ruler, constantly fearing betrayal, and ready to kill anyone he suspected of conspiring against him. Ancient historians such as Suetonius and Tacitus described Domitian as a tyrant with inhumane actions and an insatiable thirst for absolute power. Fear permeated both the court and the military, with adversaries immediately purged. His surveillance and investigation system was extremely strict, and anyone showing signs of dissent was dealt with ruthlessly. Domitian also enacted oppressive policies and increased taxes to maintain his power and enrich himself. Although some of his reforms, such as expanding public works and strengthening the military, benefited the empire, his greed and authoritarianism led to the loss of support from both the public and the elite. The tragic death. End of the Flavian dynasty. After 15 years of rule, Domitian was assassinated in the year 96. His death was orchestrated by a conspiracy within the imperial family, involving his wife Domitia and eunuchs in the palace. According to historical records, Domitian was attacked while dining in the palace. The eunuchs surrounded and assaulted him, forcing him to commit suicide, or possibly killing him during the attack. Domitian's death ended the Flavian dynasty and marked a chaotic period in the Roman Empire. The betrayal and brutality during his reign created a politically tense environment, and his death officially ended the power struggles within the royal family. Domitian's legacy and influence. Domitian may have been killed for his dictatorial actions and lust for power, but his legacy continued to influence the Roman Empire. Despite building a strong military and executing significant public works, his brutality and disdain for the aristocracy and populace eroded his credibility. After Domitian's death, the Roman Empire entered a new phase with the rise of Nerva, who implemented more moderate policies and attempted to restore stability. However, Domitian's legacy could not be easily erased. His brutal rule serves as a lesson about the consequences of absolute power and cruelty in leadership. Domitian's death, steeped in betrayal and an insatiable hunger for absolute power, is a clear example of the fragility of authority. The Flavian dynasty, known for its reforms and grand projects, ended in blood and cruelty. Domitian's tragic end was not only the fall of one emperor, but also a cautionary tale about the dangers of abused power and unchecked ambition. Conclusion. Power and the price to pay power, with all its grandeur and majesty, always comes with unforeseen challenges and dangers. In Roman imperial history, we see that even the greatest emperors and the cruelest tyrants cannot avoid the price that power demands. From Augustus, who laid the empire's foundation, to Domitian, who was murdered amidst betrayal and hatred, power has always been a double-edged sword. Roman emperors, whether talented or tyrannical, faced the fragility of the throne and the collapse that power can bring. Through the stories of the emperors, from the stability brought by Vespasian, to the bloody struggles in the year of the 4 emperors and the madness of Caligula, we learn a vital lesson about the brutality of absolute power. Power not only enables a person to change history, but also makes them vulnerable to plots, betrayal, and ultimately, death. Every emperor paid a price for their power, and that price might be their life, their honor, or the stability of the empire they ruled. The deaths of emperors, especially powerful figures like Caligula, Nero, or Domitian, are tragic scenes that prove the fragility of power. These deaths, whether by suicide, poisoning, or assassination, show that power is a tempting yet dangerous prize. Rulers must contend not only with external enemies, but also with their own inner demons and the betrayal of those closest to them. Yet it cannot be denied that power, when used properly, can bring stability and prosperity, as Vespasian and Titus demonstrated. Their deaths did not stem from brutal ambition, but marked the end of respectable lives that left great legacies for the Roman Empire. They used power to strengthen and grow the empire, rather than abuse it. From the events and deaths of Roman emperors, we learn that power should not be pursued at all costs, but embraced as a responsibility to be carried out with clarity and compassion. Power is not only strength, it is the ability to maintain peace, bring justice, and protect noble values. Ultimately, Power only survives when supported by the respect and loyalty of the people and the army. The stories of Roman emperors are not just epic chapters in the history of a mighty empire, but also lessons about power, ambition, and the price to be paid. The bloody and tragic deaths in the Roman court still echo, reminding us that power can uplift, but also destroy, and only leaders who wield it with justice and humanity can endure the test of time.